It isn't the easiest to navigate through a situation where you feel confused, hurt by what has transpired, and without the clarity of what to do. Hurt can linger for months and years. Each time that you think back to what has happened, you are reliving that experience again. Remember, how you interpret any situation is based on, number one, your present moment state of mind. That is, are you utilizing your calm, rational thinking and reasoning prefrontal cortex? Second, your current mood state. Third, whether the immediate situation revisits upon a past difficult circumstance or perhaps a repetition and a history of similar conflicts, and perhaps some of those yet unresolved. Fourth, the existing relationship that you have with the person that you are currently having a conflict with. Fifth, your personal beliefs and values. And of course, sixth, your cumulative life experiences. Conflict among loved ones can be among the most difficult and debilitating because there can be an existing history of unresolved hurt, together with the fact that you continue to see and interact with your loved ones. And even as there are past issues unresolved, this coupled with the influence of having emotional ties, a sense of loyalty and love towards the people that are most important to you, means that a conflict with a loved one will have a greater impact on you because of the importance of these people in your life. There are 4 essential practices, call them strategies, rules, solutions, for helping yourself and another move from conflict into resolution. It can be helpful if you have a third person who is skilled in this to guide and help, someone who can remain neutral to both parties and also supportive to each. I've designed these 4 practices to be effective for you to do on your own. If you've got a third person, that's great. If you've got myself to help, that's great, but you can do this for yourself. Using these 4 methods and sharing them with the person you are in conflict with will greatly help you to navigate this experience and to open yourself to what healing and resolution you can achieve. The first practice is this. A disagreement, an argument, a conflict, they all continue because one or both people have biased or incorrect perceptions. That is, you or the other person do not have a clear and complete understanding. The first practice and solution to achieve resolution is to seek understanding of the other. And of course, you can do this in 2 ways. The first is important because it doesn't require, and this is helpful, it doesn't require the presence of the other person. And in fact, it can be most helpful if you first choose to adopt a different approach to how you think and feel about the conflict and the other person. This is work you do on your own before you speak to the other person. It helps greatly if you are already practicing introspection and self-reflection, stepping into the other person's shoes metaphorically, and attempting to gain an understanding of their perspective and their mental and emotional state at the time of the conflict, and any limitations that may be affecting their ability to be their best self with you. You do this, of course, to understand the other person's words and actions, and to have greater context for why they may have presented in a way that you see as incorrect, irrational, or unreasonable. In this first practice or strategy, there's 2 veins. One is something you can do unto yourself, and I recommend you do this before you speak with the other person. And then the second way that you can seek understanding is with the person. Seeking to have greater understanding begins with taking an approach of seeing the other person and the situation from a higher perspective. That is, one of kindness, patience, and love. True understanding is difficult if you are mired in strong emotions and lodged in your perspective. Therefore, the initial work of seeking understanding must include time and the space and ability to reflect when you are in a peaceful state, when you harbor no ill will, but only the desire to truly understand the other person. You are not looking to forgive or accept a position that you do not agree with, only to understand the other person's words and behavior in a way that allows you a better perspective of why the conflict happened based on the extenuating circumstances and your ability to see things from a higher vantage point. Let me give you an example. If someone were to raise their voice or even yell at you in a phone conversation or in person, when you begin to look at the total sum of their behaviors, their mood, their resources, and their ability to have self-control, perhaps most of the time, it then begins to paint a different picture. You begin to see that in that particular moment, whilst this isn't an excuse for their behavior, you're able to understand how it happened, why their behavior was what it was. It may still, of course, be hurtful that someone has yelled at you, especially someone that you love and care about. However, what we know is that when you begin to seek a greater understanding of that person's reaction based on what I've mentioned, their resources, their ability to have self-control, their mental framework at that time, and certainly how they typically are, perhaps they're typically quite loving and kind and wonderful, it shifts for you the context in which you are feeling what hurt or anger or any emotion that is causing you suffering. That's what we want to do. We want to take enough time. It could be hours. It likely could be days that you sit with this, that you reflect upon that person's position at the time of the conflict. Perhaps it's a conflict where there's a difference of opinion where you're not going to change someone's opinion. In fact, that isn't even your job to do so. Rather, you're going to look for ways in which you can understand the situation better before you even speak with them, so that you are creating an element of compassion, of patience, of acceptance for where they are, where they were in that moment at that time. Even whilst you name their behavior as unjust or unkind or wrong, it's important to name it for yourself so that it isn't about appeasing or attempting to ignore what's happened or making it okay in your mind or justifying. It's about saying to yourself, that wasn't nice. That wasn't correct. That position I don't agree with. But letting this be your own internal, and if you want to journal this, your written commentary, your awareness, your reflection onto yourself, so that you have a different headspace and approach when you go to speak with the person. You'll be speaking with them from a more calm, reflective, certainly a prefrontal cortex position where you're able to talk about it from a standpoint of being somewhat removed. That is, there will be less emotional context for you because you've worked through the situation to a perspective where you can accurately say to yourself, yep, that wasn't good or that was wrong. I understand how that happened for them. Or if it's a case of disagreeing with someone's opinion and perspective, I understand how come I disagree. I believe I'm correct. However, I'm going to approach this from a perspective of being respectful, seeking to hold understanding and perhaps learn even more from speaking with them, and also choosing to not harbor, choosing to not carry this hurt with me. The second way that you can apply this very first practice for helping yourself move from conflict into resolution is with the person. You do so in hopes that the other person will be able to offer further insight and clarity that you didn't have. Now remember, if you've done some good work on reflecting, understanding, carefully assessing what you know about the person and their strengths and also their vulnerabilities, you may approach them in conversation with a lot of this already figured out. What you're doing in this space unto yourself is also reflecting with what's called empathy. That is your ability to understand, to be aware of, and sensitive to another's experience, including what could be their thoughts and feelings. For example, when you approach a situation practicing this idea of empathy through seeking to understand another's thoughts and feelings, they could be feeling vulnerable. They could be feeling less than. They could be struggling with you in particular to hold their ground, to have you respect and listen to them or feel heard. And so considering the nuances that are behind their actions makes it helpful for you to approach them. To seek understanding of a situation requires both people are willing to put aside their need to prove themselves to be right. And instead, you may certainly believe you're right, but give up the need to prove it to somebody. Rather, hold it for yourself. And instead, focus on answering questions, sharing your perspective, and also seeking to understand the other. And understanding comes with listening, of course. The outcome at this first stage is actually not to reach a resolution directly. Although this certainly may happen out of both people being able to hear and understand one another in a way that has not been done before. Really, the hope in this first stage is that you are talking, you are seeking understanding, greater perspective, and of course, if you've done this reflection on your own first, you're going to be so much further ahead in achieving the resolution you deserve and look for. The second essential and skilled principle for helping yourself and another move from conflict into resolution, saying, "I'm sorry." We underestimate the power of an apology. You say, "I'm sorry," not because you are necessarily wrong, but because another has been hurt. You have in some way contributed or even caused tension, or you may have behaved in a way that has not been of the utmost kind and loving. You can be sorry because your relationship has deteriorated for a time because of an unresolved conflict that didn't in fact need to happen. You can also be sorry that you and another did not have all of the tools or ways of knowing how to resolve conflict until now. When both parties are truly sorry for their actions and anything that may have contributed or directly caused hurt or suffering of another, peace can flow. It can enter our heart and our bodies, and we can feel ready to take the steps towards healing and true resolution. Saying "I'm sorry" lets the other person know that you care about them, that you are willing to recognize what hurt or damage you have caused, and you are saying that you are remorseful. I can think about a million times where I've heard, or more so when I've spoken the words "I'm sorry," that has created this energy shift, this sense of opening to the other person hearing me better, or perhaps them letting go of some of their need to guard and protect and defend themselves. "I'm sorry" is said in a most genuine way, is this magical force of kindness and love. When another has apologized for the situation, for their words, for behaving in a way that is not typical or fitting, you also let your guard down in order to receive their compassion and kindness. And this allows you to move towards resolution, for healing the past, and for feeling a renewed sense of peace and harmony in the relationship. At this stage, you can think back to the conflict and recognize that your feelings are different. You no longer re-experience the same hurt. that you once did. The third essential and skilled principle for helping yourself and another move from conflict into resolution: be willing to let go of what feelings you have been holding on to that have kept you engaged in conflict, in misunderstanding, in a need to feel hurt and as a victim, and of a lack of willingness to make amends. What I'm saying here is this third strategy is about letting go of your need to remain stuck in your wounds. It's this ability and willingness to let go of your hurt and suffering, which then allows you to hold your power in a way that allows you to feel autonomous, responsible for creating your own emotional state and for not continuing to live in the past. This cognitive and emotional freedom arises out of having a greater understanding of the other person, the situation, and after you have taken some time to reflect on what your own part has been towards the conflict. You'll always remain engaged in conflict when you hold your heart closed, whether this is out of a need to protect yourself or a pattern of feeling hurt and like a victim. When you are able to look beyond your need to remain hurt, angry, or any other emotions that keep you from having resolution and healing, and look instead to what is possible, what healing and reconciliation you want, then you will move in the direction of this. And even if the other person is unwilling to do the same. I can think of cases with clients, certainly where their work to resolve a conflict and to heal has been largely one-sided, and it certainly happens in our own lives. Another person is not quite ready to give up the fight. Instead, they want to stay hurt or angry or wounded. You can't do a lot with that. You can only work with how you want to feel and the resolution that you are looking for. And in these cases, that resolution may be forgiveness of yourself and the other, and the acceptance that you are here and you're feeling this essence of lightness and relief and release from whatever difficult feelings you once felt, and also the acceptance that they are where they are, and you can't necessarily move someone until they choose to want to move. You can find resolution, and at times we need to find it for ourselves in holding patience, understanding, acceptance that the other person may not yet be ready or willing to find their path to resolution and forgiveness of what is unchangeable, together with acknowledging what is okay and not okay. And it's important that you continue to hold clear and respectful boundaries with others. That is, if somebody continues to want to be hurt and hurt you, there is going to be a need for you to uphold a boundary that says, this isn't okay. You can choose to be hurt or you can choose to forgive. However, it's not okay to hurt me because you're still feeling hurt. It's important that you choose a future desired outcome. That is, if you wish to remain hostage to your hurt, to your anger, to your confusion, this is going to be what you continue to perpetuate. However, if you have decided that you want to have a harmonious relationship with another, and this is your focus, then you will be willing to let go of and make peace with what feelings and hurts you have carried in order to have this relationship improved. That is, sometimes the other person will be ahead of you in their perspective of seeking a higher ground and healing and forgiveness. And if you're not quite ready yet to do that, remembering that you're choosing your future outcome. If you are staying hurt, there might be some valid reasons for why you're still hurt. Maybe the person is unknowingly or knowingly repeating their same unhelpful, unhealthy behaviors. And you may need to create boundaries that allow you to feel protected and safe when you are with them or speaking with them. However, at some point, it's going to be important to focus on the positive outcome that you are seeking and to state your desire and willingness to have this with another is paramount for releasing conflict and pain. You may need to communicate with the other person your need to continue to think this through, to continue to reflect on what has happened, and just to let them know that you need a little bit more time to get to where you want to go. That is to feel peace and forgiveness and harmony and resolution. And once again, I'm going to restate that if the other person is not yet ready nor willing to meet you on your journey, you can still make peace with the situation because you have decided to no longer live in the unhappiness that is now perpetuated by reliving the past. The fourth and final and essential skilled principle for helping yourself and another move from conflict into resolution. As the previous uncomfortable emotions lift and as you begin to feel differently about the past, there will be relief and a sense of peace that you feel within your being. However, if you continue to notice pangs of unresolved hurt or confusion, it's best to repeat steps 1 through 3. There can be other wounds that are buried from other unresolved situations with this loved one that continue to be triggering for you. If you focus on the situation that you have been working to heal, and only this for now, with healing of this situation, there will be a sense of release and relief, of inner peace and acceptance, and this will allow you to likely feel differently towards other misunderstandings or conflicts that are related in nature. As you practice these principles and tools, you will be able to apply them to other past unresolved conflicts, even if the other person is not privy to this. It could be something that you've been carrying as a wound and a hurt, and now you have these tools to go back and to heal and resolve what has been bothering you. You can use this 4-step practice for any unresolved situation of hurt and conflict. And of course, it's most helpful to hold gratitude in your heart for what you have learned and discovered about yourself, about what you need to do differently in the future towards being harmonious and loving in all of your relationships, and for what you have learned about the other person that will help you in your future interactions with them. This is learning without judgment of yourself or another, and gratitude for the ability to heal the conflict in your heart, to practice an open and direct relationship in future, and to perhaps navigate with new and different rules for how you will both be with each other if you disagree in future. Rather than avoid conflict or disagreement or remain mired in the angst and suffering of unresolved disagreement or conflict, you can apply each of these 4 protocols, these principles, these steps towards learning more about yourself and how you truly want to be in situations when others may be difficult or confrontational, where they may not be able to see themselves accurately and when others point blame at you. You can now approach new situations with the same person from a higher vantage point or perspective that includes not needing to prove yourself right, to have your opinion always agreed with, but rather to practice loving kindness as the first step in communication in all of your interactions with others and as a way of being in the world. Everything we've talked about is a facet of being loving kindness. That is, practicing kindness first, being able to open your heart, to appreciate where somebody is, where you are, and to be able to let go of what does not serve you in order to continue in this relationship with this person meeting them wherever they are. And that's important too, because you are on a different path. And that can mean that you are seeing things from a different perspective and hopefully a higher perspective already. Being kind and respectful, but without needing to engage directly in any bad behavior, will challenge you to take a higher ground, to smile and remain pleasant and in control, and to not need to defend yourself or be right. Sometimes the best way to do this is to quietly end the conversation respectfully, give the other person a chance to calm down. You can then go through these steps to practice a way of seeing the situation from this higher vantage point and being able to assess the other person's ability and skills so that when you do come back to them and speak with them, you will have a clear sense of the boundaries that you have, the boundaries that you will enforce, and doing so with kindness and love. Simply stating your highest intention is often enough, together with the acknowledgement and your willingness to understand what the other person is saying, even if and when you do not agree with their words and actions. Then you may choose a kind means of ending the conversation. Remember that all others are not as equipped to manage their thoughts and feelings, and we certainly do not know the extent to which others are suffering in their own inner turmoil, separate from any engagement with us. And of course, for my professional help and guidance in any situation that you may continue to be struggling with, and that may continue to be a source of pain and hurt, as it is unresolved, please consider reaching out to me and let me help. Thank you so much for listening. This is Dorothy Zennuriye Juno. Namaste.